Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection out in Barcelona, Spain with Dr. Aaron Morris. Aaron, can you get us started by just introducing yourself and also reflecting a little bit on that moment in life where you decided you want to become a chiropractor? What was it that attracted you to this profession, and what was your background leading up to that?
Okay, so first of all, thanks very much. This is great what you're doing, Ben. I really appreciate what you're doing for the profession. So that's awesome. My story, I didn't have like a crazy miracle story like a lot of chiropractors do. I just got into it because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was thinking because I played football growing up and wrestling and I always thought, well, I might as well just be like a sports doctor or sports medicine and so I was looking at doing that, being a physical therapist, and then my dad met a chiropractor kind of through the grapevine, and the chiropractor was just when he heard that I was going to go be a physical therapist, he said, before he does that, make sure he comes and talks to me. And this doctor, Michael Moore in Redding, California, where I grew up, I went and spoke to him and I saw his practice. I just immediately fell in love with it. This is amazing. I don't even know what this is, but I remember being in his practice and just seeing the energy, all these different people so happy to be there. And I thought, I want to do this. It sounds amazing. He started explaining it a little bit. And then eventually my family got under care with a different chiropractor in town. And my mom, who had migraine headaches, they started getting much better. And I just was sold. I just wanted to do it. I didn't get it fully, but I knew I wanted to do it. Yeah.
And what was so besides being a college football, or not college football player, but besides growing up as a football player, what was it that was like maybe priming you to see yourself in healthcare, see yourself going in the direction of taking care of people and being in a clinical practice setting?
I honestly, man, I always just enjoyed people. I've always been a people person. I never saw myself as being somebody who necessarily was going to like help a bunch of people. I just thought, this sounds cool. I love sports. I'd love to be around athletes. And it was just kind of I guess I'll just do this thing. And I only really started seeing the potential of like, oh, I can do this thing when I started at Life West and I started going to technique clubs and I started practicing technique and practicing with my friends and realizing like, okay, I could actually probably do this. Like I remember one of my colleagues said, Aaron, I think you're going to be a great chiropractor one day. And I remember just thinking like me, like, I don't know about that. And then slowly but surely, you just kind of go through this process of changing the way that you see yourself and sort of shift in identity that happens to all of us. And um, I remember this woman, Natalie Mearsman, she told me that, and it something shifted inside of me. And I thought, okay, maybe I could actually be good at this. It's cool.
Yeah, and actually, just in the effort to tease out the details, can you maybe be a little bit more, reflect on that moment where you shifted your identity and kind of like unpack that process of what you have observed in the positions that you've been in recently, but just like what you observe in students, like where there is a shift that happens within them. Maybe it's at a
Hmm.
seminar, maybe it's in the beginning of school once they get, a piece of paper that says chiropractic student, but maybe just tease out some of that because I think that's really key.
So thank you. I will. I remember being there, and when she said that, it made me. It almost was like a camera was just like somebody started rolling a camera and it was watching the situation. And I can go back there. I was 20 years old. It was 20 something years ago, and it was this moment of where I always had this idea that like chiropractic is amazing. Chiropractic helps so many people. I've seen all these great chiropractors and talk about all the miracles they've had in practice. But I never saw myself as being like somebody who could actually deliver that. And when she said that, it made me just for a moment, it made me kind of just like get out of myself and the person I'd always been being with these limited beliefs that we all have. And I thought, oh, what if I could actually be good at that? And it allowed me just that it was like a door was open and it allowed me to just kind of slip through that consciousness there for just a second. And then I took my adjusting training so seriously, but up to that point, I'd never thought that it was really possible that I could be good at it until then. And then all of a sudden that door started getting bigger and bigger. And over this process of a few years before I graduated, I just believed in myself. By the end of it, I believed in chiropractic so much, and I trained a lot as a student, my adjusting, I believed in it. that by the time I graduated, I was very confident, maybe overconfident.
Can you maybe describe the way of becoming a chiropractic artist, developing the artist within, which looks different for every student, every person? Maybe just talk
Mhm.
about what your particular path was like, what kind of training you underwent, and how
Sure.
that translated day to day as a student.
Okay, so I got into Gonstead very early on, and I loved Gonstead, but it was so hard. I was like, God, how do they do that in the chair? And I saw them doing this, and how do they do P to A? And it felt like it literally felt impossible. But I went every single week to Gonstead Club. I was fortunate enough to. I lived with this guy Mike Young and Rick Swecker, and the three of us. We took it so seriously. Our training, we had this thing where we train every single day, and we made a commitment like you don't get to go to bed until you've done your training. And so part of our training was we'd have to do like it was something like 10 or 15 setups on each side, cervical, seated cervical. If you're not a chiropractic student yet, the setup is basically like practicing adjusting, like getting into position to adjust somebody and going through the steps. And we'd have to do that before bed, and we had these different things that we'd train, and that was our deal and a commitment that we made with each other, where if we didn't do it and we got home late and everyone else was in bed, you got them out of bed and got them in the chair and did your setups before bed. It was pretty awesome. So that's kind of how it started there. And then I had some great mentors. Jay Kamarick was probably my biggest mentor. You know, Jay, just beautiful soul. You know, what a guy. And he was probably my biggest mentor. Arnaud Brunier was one of my very, very big mentors. And then mentors, but maybe less so, were Sue Brown, Lou Corletto, Stu Bittman was a big mentor. So anyway, and I would go to all their seminars. I'd help them organize seminars and just train like crazy. We just had a group that we'd train every single day. We'd meet in room, I think it was room 257 at Life West, and it was this technique room. We'd go every single break. We'd go in there at the 9:30 break and go train.
Not very different from my story, but I just am
Yeah.
curious, do you have any ideas on like where these ideas came from to people like Jay or Arno, that training is such an essential component of the art of chiropractic? Because I feel as though before they came, we're never really given a backstory on like where the roots of our roots lied.
Yes.
And I'm just curious if you have any insights into the history of like where the training came from, that seriousness of training at a professional
Mm-hmm.
level and taking it really,
Mm-hmm.
seriously. I'm curious.
Yeah. It was okay. So that was never really Jay's energy or Lou Corletto's energy of like this sort of like a militant approach to training. That was very much Arno. And Arno was the person who brought, I would say, who brought that back to more modern chiropractic, is training. Because Ben, you've probably seen those videos. Remember back in Palmer, and everyone was training toggle recoil, and they dropped the keys, and everyone would just toggle at the same time. You had a room of 150 people toggling in unison. It's just beautiful. They really took it seriously back in the day. So I think it was there back in the day, and then it got lost, and there was just probably some people who did, and others who just kind of like, I don't know. And I think Arno was just one of the ones who was very vocal and about bringing it back to chiropractic. You had a sports background too, didn't you? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I was a college soccer tennis player.
Okay, so you know what it takes to train to get good at something, and if you want to be like high level, you got to train your butt off. And I think that people like you and me, who are used to that and knowing what it takes to be good at something, we are drawn to that kind of thing, and others might not really be drawn to it. It put off some people, but for me, I was immediately like, whatever he just did right there, I have to learn how to do that because that was freaking amazing, and I got to learn how to do that. You know?
Yeah, no, it's just funny to hear you name drop like five of my biggest mentors, and
Cool.
they're not really teaching anymore. There's
Mm-mm.
versions of what they taught being propagated. I believe you're one of the people that are really propagating some of what's at the core of what they taught, and
Yes.
that's why this podcast is so valuable, because the new generation is not really given as much resource shall we
Hmm.
say, from these types of individuals that really shaped our way of thinking and training and being
Yes.
as chiropractic students. So maybe this is
Yes.
just a good segue to talk about Syntropy and where that came from, and like
Hmm.
when you started it, where you were at in your path when you started that, and why you started it, and what it is.
Yeah, awesome. So Syntropy, for those of you watching who don't know what that is, Syntropy Chiro Training is it's a seminar series that my business partner and I have been doing for, I guess it's been about 7 years. It wasn't always called Syntropy, but it has developed into that. We were both on staff for Arno Brunier. We were on staff for a long time, and I had moved to Barcelona, Spain, and Patrick McMahon had also moved from the States to Barcelona, Spain. We met here and I'm in Barcelona right now. I'm still here. And we became very, very close friends. And it was the same sort of thing as talking to you, Ben. It was, who are some of your mentors? Who are some of your mentors? Who are your friends? Who are like, did we just become best friends? That's our stupid joke, and from Step Brothers. And, and anyway, we just started talking about, like immediately we love the same thing, which is chiropractic and specifically adjusting and being able to, we're just real nerds about it and like geeking out about like obsessing about it. How can you make the adjustment better and better and better and better? And so we were working with Arno, and eventually he gave up MLS and stopped teaching that. And at that point, we had realized that while we had a very, very, like the thing that was most similar to what we were doing was this discipline for training. And the biggest thing that Arno brought us was the idea of adjusting from peace and adjusting from ease, because he used to call this thing making love to the spine, MLS, right? And it's like, I remember seeing that as a first year student going, what the hell is this? I want to try that one. That sounds interesting. Making love to the spine. And his thing was a lot of chiropractors, most chiropractors were not really present and loving as they were making adjustment. And it could be very forceful and let me just get this to move and let me make some noise and let me get the pop. And he was very clear about this is not what it's about. It's about delivering an adjustment with grace and with love. And doing it in a way that's really nice to receive and that people will enjoy and then refer others to you. And so the biggest piece I would say that Arno, that we still carry on, and we very much give him credit for this, is just so awesome, is adjusting from peace, and we call that adjusting from the sweet spot. And it's really the same thing. But then from there, when he was moving away from MLS, Patrick and I were honest with ourselves, and we said, we can't keep teaching that. We're adjusting quite differently, and we have a different approach to what is our passion. And like you said, kind of like you become your own artist in a way, and trying to teach his way would not have been authentic at all. And we had to move ahead and teach our thing, which is Syntropy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Keep going as far as what Syntropy evolved to become, and just kind of
yes.
tease out the layers and the details.
Well, we started teaching because it was his girlfriend at the time, Rochelle. She was at the Barcelona Chiropractic College, her first year of school. And her and her friends they were going into clinic, and they basically had the freak out moment of, I am going to have to do this to people and I don't know what I'm doing. And they asked Patrick and I to come help them with technique. And so that's when we started teaching the students. And that was, I think, 2014 or 15. It was before. It was like 2012, I think, or 11. God, I don't know, man. Time flies. It was around then. And we'd go and we'd do these classes at 7 in the morning. We'd go to the basement of the Barcelona Chiropractic College, and we had this room full of students. And we realized when we got there that we could help them, but we had no idea how to teach. And we were thinking like, okay, we're pretty good at adjusting at this point, but we don't know how to teach. And then it created a void where it was, okay, I want to get good at adjusting. That was our big void when we were very young chiropractors. And then that immediately became our biggest void, which is, we don't know how to teach this. Let's figure this out. And it lit that fire underneath us. Like, we want to help these students. How can we become better at this? And that was 2011 or so. And that eventually turned into these small seminars that the students at the Barcelona Chiropractic College would organize. Patrick kept going with those seminars. I moved to the south of Spain for a while. I went through a health crisis and I had to get out of practice for a couple of years. And then when I got okay and I got my health back, I moved back up to Barcelona, and that's when Patrick and I started Syntropy. And from there, these tiny seminars, 30 people, it was like, oh my God, 30 people, how are we going to do this? It's a huge group. It has evolved since then. That was 2015, and it's evolved to something that's like grown very organically. And we teach seminars all over the world now. It's pretty remarkable, actually. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, there was a picture I saw recently of you speaking to a group of what looked like 60 to 80, maybe even 100 plus people. And it reminded me of like Bruce Lee looking out on all his students, and everybody's going through the movements and the motions. Can you talk about the biodynamics of adjusting and teasing out all the details and layers that one goes through and thinking, maybe just touching on maybe some of the, I guess, curriculum that you guys have developed, what is in those seminars that people can learn about?
Yes, that is a big one, and that could take us 12 hours. So let me be let me try to just summarize and give you kind of the broad strokes. I would say that we teach from a hierarchy. And so if you imagine a pyramid, and the base levels of the pyramid, the hierarchy, are the most important. And then as you move up, you go into, it's a sequence where you have the most important, second most important, and then you eventually get to the very top where it's the tip of the pyramid. And all of them are essential, but you have to start with a base. And if you're going to grow, then you need to start with a strong base. And so the very, very base of what we teach is something called dropping in, which is present time consciousness and being here in the moment. And we're not used to doing that as human beings, and we are busy and we are distracted and we're everywhere. We are being pulled into 1,000 different directions all at once. And so you know how it is if you're talking to somebody, Ben, and they're with you and they're present with you, and they're not looking over your shoulder and seeing what else is going on behind you or looking down at their phone. They're with you. And that's number one, is being dropped in. When you're with somebody, you're with somebody. We call it being in airplane mode. So when you're in airplane mode, there's nothing coming in, there's nothing going out. It's you right here in this moment. And when we can do that, there's so many benefits. We tell the people that come train with us, if all you do is start dropping in, talking less, and being present, and you don't change anything about your technique at all, you use nothing else that we teach you this weekend, we promise you're going to get better results in practice. Your practice is going to grow. And so that's the very, very base. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to go back and forth a little bit?
No, well, we can keep going. If you want to if you want to bounce things off of me and get my perspective on things, yeah, I'm totally open to that. I just providing space for you to explore these concepts. I also love to give language to things that things like force direction and force application, which yes, people have given language to it in the past, like Jay Comerick, like Arno. However, there's room for development, room for growth in those fields. I want to hold space for you to keep going with your pyramid. Maybe you finish the concept, unless you have a specific question for me to bounce off of me. I'm curious.
No, I'll keep going, and we can. I think it's good to get some banter back and forth and just chat and get your point of view. So I'll lay out the basic hierarchy. So the base is dropping in. Okay. And then from there, once you're dropped in, you got to get to the next level, which is having an analysis that you understand, that you feel confident with. It's analysis in biomechanics and understanding, how do these joints actually move? Because a lot of the stuff that we learned from some of these masters and from school, and it was like, we take biomechanics in school and then we go learn technique. And it was almost like there was just these completely different concepts, and it's like, well, what's right? There's chiropractic biomechanics, or is it biomechanics? And so what I'm very fortunate with Syntropy to have Patrick as one of my best friends, because he has like an engineer's mind, and he's just like, he won't go to sleep at night until he figures something out. And it's like, but how does this thing move? And like, when he figures out like how it moves, but it's like every single joint of the spine, he's very, very good at that. So that's definitely one of his strengths. And I've learned so much by being his business partner and like being with him, 15 times a year, and where we're going into detail about how these joints move. People think it doesn't really matter, just move the bone and innate will do the healing. It does. That is what I believe as well. But shouldn't we do it in a way that it's designed to move, like innate biomechanics? And so that's the second one. It's innate biomechanics, and then a very clear, what is your analysis? When do you know when to adjust? What's the primary, and when do you don't adjust? And when do you not adjust? So what do you think about that?
Sorry, hit the
It's
mute
okay.
button. Yeah, no, I love it. I think that it's very clear to me that, so I teach adjusting right now at Life West. I just
Cool.
stepped in recently to just assist and facilitate. And when I start talking about the facet joint angles and the biomechanics of the spine, it's almost like I'm speaking a foreign language, even though they're over here palpating and trying to practice quote unquote setups and trying to adjust each other. They're not really visualizing what they're putting their hands on, and they're
Yes.
definitely not connecting that biomechanics of the spine class to this class that they're in right now. So I'm right there with you. Like, just saying that is building a bridge in people's minds that, hey, I can't do one and forget about the other. They go together.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's awesome. I didn't realize you were teaching. That's great, Ben. So drop in. Once you're dropped in, you're present. Then you can actually perceive. You can feel what's going on. Because if not, you're there and you're poking around, and I can't feel it. I can't feel it. And it's like, does that hurt? Does that hurt? And it's not a great experience for the person lying on the table. Arno and Jay and these people were very good about, you're not adjusting a bone, you're adjusting a human being. And so I'm sure that you teach that when you're teaching adjusting at school. This is not a PRS. This is a human being lying on the table, and they're more than just a bone that's misaligned and not moving right. And so, yeah. Anyway, then we move into patient positioning, doctor positioning, and finally force application. So there's the 5 steps to the hierarchy. And you got to start with the base. Everyone normally, when they go to an adjusting seminar, there's show me how to move the bone. Just show me how to move the bone. Just show me how to make noise. And like when we teach, we don't care if it cavitates. We don't care if there's a pop when you're training. We want you to get all the other stuff right first. And if you do those things right, we always say this in the seminar, if you're dropped in, if you got your analysis and biomechanics, you've got the patient relaxed, you're in a position that's safe and sustainable for you. You're not going to hurt yourself, and you're lined up perfectly. All you do is go, you blow on it and it goes, and it explodes. So we don't have to have all this. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to do CrossFit to do chiropractic. You just got to train and do the fundamentals right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love if you could just maybe riff for a moment on like tissue pulls and yes, line of drives. Listings is such a big thing in the minds of students. And yeah, basically just body positioning of the person that's delivering the adjustment. How are they breathing? How relaxed are they? What does their footwork look like? What's the angle of their body? I'm just curious, like how you're able to give it in a way or provide a structure for people to learn, or a framework for people to learn these things in a way that really does transform a person from the beginning of the seminar to the end of the seminar.
Okay, so this is really good. It's going to be hard to show certain things because we don't have images. So I'll explain just the basic stuff. And then when somebody comes to a seminar, it's cool because we have students who are in their first month of school. And then you look around the room and you have people who've been in practice for 40 years, And so we always ask the question, well, doesn't it seem weird that you can have someone who's their first month of school and someone who's been doing it for 40 years, that they finish the seminar and they're both really happy and they got a bunch out of the seminar? How's that even possible? And it's possible because what we see adjusting as something that you can train and master. It's not something that you do that seminar once and now I've got it. It's like a sport, or it's like a martial art, or it's like dance, or it's like art. You don't do it once and you're a master at it. That's ridiculous. But what we do is we say, let's learn. And the first seminar might be like drinking through a fire hose, and then, but you get some stuff to work on, and then you go work on it. And the next time you come back in 6 months or a year or whatever it is, you've trained it, now you can take it to the next level. And a black belt gets a black belt. They say that a black belt is a white belt that just didn't quit, that just kept showing up. And so if we keep showing up and chipping away at it and get better and better, and we don't roll up the hill to mastery, we have to climb up the hill to mastery. And so when people are starting out, we just set real clear expectations. Chiropractors, if you've been in practice for a long time, no pressure. We don't expect you to be good at this. This is a new approach, so just relax. Students, you're just starting. We don't expect you, so just relax. And then we all just train on the same level.
I love it. I love it. I'm curious if we could explore this concept that I have. I'm sure you're familiar with that event that used to take place about 5-10 years ago called Talk the Tick. And
Yes.
we had an event called Deliver the Goods, which was not necessarily a competition because everybody's art looks completely different, but which was a demonstration opportunity for students at all different phases of the program to demonstrate their skill sets and creating
Nice.
rubrics for personalized feedback. I'm just curious what you think that could do to position the training of your art and like preparing for this day, not because it's a performance, but because it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate your skills, demonstrate your level of abilities. What do you think something like a Deliver the Goods artist demonstration, let's just say collaboration, would mean for student cultures at different campuses around the world?
I think it's a positive thing. Anywhere where people are going to, if you are going to be up in front of a group of peers and have to perform, that's probably one of the hardest things. It's harder to do that than to go up in front of the public that has no idea what you're doing. Like example, if you're going to go do Talk the Tick, you could go do a talk in front of a group of just lay people and you probably feel fine about it. But if you're in front of a group of chiropractors, you might get nervous. Same about technique demonstration. If you're up in front of your peers, you're going to bring your A game. And then in order to bring your A game, you're going to train your ass off for it. You're not going to go up there and be unprepared and look like an idiot in front of everybody. And because no one wants to look like a fool in front of their peers. And so having said that, I think it would be real positive as long as we can do it with joy and actually really enjoy doing it. Because I'm this, recovering perfectionist. Here we go. And, like many of us are just trying to do things perfect all the time and trying to perform. And as long as we're doing it, but from a place of, okay, I'm a little bit nervous because I want to do a great job, but I actually am loving it and I'm enjoying myself while I'm up here, then I think it's good. But if we're just like, oh, I got to do it perfect, and we just freeze up, then it sucks. But I like it. I like the idea. Like back in the day, and they used to do these toggle competitions. They'd see how they could spin the egg, and they'd measure the speed and all that stuff. I think it's great to get competitive in it, and like everybody just increase their level together.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for you to maybe just do somewhat of a deep dive into the kaleidoscope of different colors, shall we say, in the palette of an adjusting artist. How would you describe an adjusting artist's palette? Maybe it's the moves that they could do or how they redirect different forces of the people that are coming in that they're taking care of.
Okay. Great. That's an awesome question because I see all over Instagram, as I'm sure you do as well, and social media, people adjusting. And I think that it is, yeah, I don't know. I'm older than most people probably watching this right now. And you might think, oh, this old guy has no idea what he's talking about. But what I've seen is it looks like there's a lot of focus on the chiropractor and not as much as chiropractic. So what I mean by that is how good or cool can I look while I'm doing this adjustment instead of like how amazing is chiropractic that I'm delivering for this person on the table. And there's one person, and I don't know, I think it's called like Snap Doctor or something like that. And it came across my feed and I was like, what is this? This really big guy. And then he'll do this adjustment and then snap his fingers every time, and just like style, and snap his fingers and this flair and all this kind of stuff. And for me, it's not like I'm just calling him out because maybe his adjustments are awesome, and I have no idea. He's never adjusted me, so maybe he's doing great work for people. But I think when it becomes like that, it's kind of gimmicky, and is it about how amazing chiropractic is, or is it about how cool I can look? And So that's, I guess, my preface. I'm not trying to be a downer on this or anything, but I think that chiropractic is great, and what we should do is be as efficient as possible. And if you're really good at it, it should look like you're doing nothing because you're efficient and you're just standing there and you are wasting no energy and you're moving that joint exactly how it needs to be. Everything's lined up perfectly, and you go like this, and there's a profound experience on the table, and it looks like you did nothing. But the person on that table will tell you something's changed here. That was amazing. Feel me?
I'm definitely feeling you, brother. Yes. Can you maybe just speak to life in Barcelona and what it's been like, the path that you've taken? You said you were in Barcelona, you went back to the south of Spain, you dropped out of practice, but then coming back into practice. So I imagine you've started multiple practices at different stages
Mm-hmm.
of your journey. Can you maybe just
Yeah.
talk for students about what that's like, and maybe just the creative energy that goes into that?
Yeah, so I've been in Spain pretty much since 2004, and it's great. It's almost been 20 years. It's crazy. Um, I started to practice here. I came to Spain. Um, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then I came to Spain because I got a job. I was hired for 5 months to cover somebody in a maternity leave, and I covered her, and it went really great. Her practice actually doubled when I was in it. And then I said, "Do you want me to stay?" And she said, "No, I'm ready to come back. I'm ready to come back." And so after these 5 months, we're good. And then someone else kind of poached me and said, "Hey, if you're down there, come work with me." And I worked with this other person in Barcelona, started working with him, and then she was immediately like a couple of months later, like, "Oh, can you please, I need more time with my baby." It was true, she was on her maternity leave. "Can you come back?" And I was just like, "Nah, I'm already committed to somebody else." And so I started working there. That practice grew very, very quickly. And I eventually bought that practice. It grew, and then it grew to the point where I needed to move it into another space, to a bigger space. So I bought the space. I kept building that practice. I was coaching with Ron Oberstein back in the day, president of Life West, and Ron was my coach. And I would just grew this really big, busy practice, and I was seeing a lot of people. And probably not to get into it too much in this podcast, but I worked myself into sickness. I worked my butt off. I got burnt out. I was involved with the Spanish Chiropractic Association, the Barcelona Chiropractic College. My relationship wasn't going great with my ex-wife, and I was like full on in practice, and it was just like I just kind of exploded from the inside out. I got really sick, and then that's when I had to get out of practice. Okay, so that happened there. I moved down south for a year or so, took another year off, and then I came back to Barcelona, and now I'm in my practice, my current practice, and I love it. It's my favorite practice I've been in. It's cool. I don't have a CA. I have a virtual CA. I do have a CA, but she's not in the practice. And it's just a real smooth, easy. I call it the Zen practice, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, can you maybe just tease out some of the details of your current dream practice from the inside
Hmm.
out, the way that it's been set up, the way that people experience it when they come into it, where it is, what it looks like, what it feels like?
Yeah, I wish I could share some pictures with you. That would be great. I don't have any ready, but it's awesome. It's this Barcelona has just amazing architecture, so you just have to check it out. Google architecture Barcelona, and anyone watching this right now or listening to this, and just blown away. And right out my big, I have basically you walk in the front door. There's a waiting room, and there's a little first visit room attached to it. And then I have my big adjusting room. And my adjusting room, I have 5 tables, and I have there's big windows, just pretty much all these big windows open to this amazing building right in front of it. This is like it's gorgeous, and tons of light. It's pretty classy. I love it. I got help designing it, and it's got a lot of plants, and there's wood, and it's white, and you've got glass in the wood. You got some steel in there, so it's got this really nice feel. Um, and I don't talk a lot when I'm in my adjusting flow. I leave the talking for special visits, when it's first visits, report of findings, re-examinations, and that's pretty much it. And yeah, it's quiet. I got good music, chill music going. I'm just in the flow. And yeah, I just had a chiropractic, a brand new grad come over he trains a lot with Syntropy, and he came down from the UK to observe today. So he was with me today, and it was awesome. It's just real easy. I don't adjust a lot of segments on each person. Um, Relatively high volume. There's a good flow. I think I mentioned I have 5 tables in there, and it's great. It flies by, and by the end of the day, I'm just like, wow, there's another 4 hours that just flew by. You know how it is when you're in the flow, right, Ben?
Absolutely, yeah. I try not to talk that much as well, but can you maybe just talk about the amount of segments that you choose to adjust or not adjust, and also how that virtual CA works integrated into your practice, how you utilize their services, and then also what the idea is behind having multiple tables in a room and adjusting open base style?
Okay, there's a lot of questions there. Let's see if I can hit them. All right, so let me start with the virtual CA. Sophie, she is from Argentina. She's a friend of a friend, and she's just awesome. She's been working with me. She started out working for us at Syntropy, and then she eventually, as Syntropy grew, she just came over and helps me with the practice right now. And she handles pretty much all email, all communication correspondence, WhatsApp. We use WhatsApp a lot in Europe. She does any of the admin stuff, any invoicing, she's good with design and things like that. So if we need to do some stuff for Instagram, she'll do it. And she's just my right hand. And what I realized is I made a really nice flow in my practice where I don't need anyone directing traffic. I would think, like, what are the big things that a CA does? Basically, what does a CA spend most of their time doing? Taking calls to change appointments or cancel appointments and take payment. So I just figured out a way. I just use this online system. People book online. They can change their appointments online. I'm very clear in my leadership with, like, you need to book your appointments online. You need to book 10 or 12 visits or whatever. And we're going to do an exam at that point. And it's very clear. There's very, very clear leadership where I'm leading the way, but I'm not hand holding. I leave that to them. Like, you need to make your own appointments online and come in and get them all in before June 15th, for example, you know? So there's a really good flow there. I just open the door. I bring 5 people in. As soon as I'm done adjusting somebody, they will leave, and I will either pop my head out and say next, or someone will just know it's their turn and they'll come in if they're in the waiting room. Payment is done in advance. They buy packages of adjustments, and that's all done. It's Sophie handles all that stuff. That's super easy. And I just get to focus on adjusting them, taking care of them, and leading them to the next phase of care and to recovery and to beyond that, you know, great health. I adjust few segments. I adjust, I generally start with someone face down, and I'll check them. And if I'm going to adjust side posture, I'll probably start with side posture, and then I'll turn them over. I will have already checked their thoracics to see if I'm going to do that. I'll turn them over. If I'm going to adjust the cervical, I'll do a cervical. If I do both sides, I do both sides. It just depends. And then if I've done side posture, I probably won't do an anterior dorsal. And if I haven't done a side posture and I feel there's an anterior, I'll do that. And so I will adjust maybe 3 or 4 segments maximum. I'm not doing a flying 7. I'm not moving a bunch. You've probably come to the same thing, but less is more. As weird as that sounds, less is more, you know?
Yeah, and I would love, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable
Sure.
and just providing insight. And then maybe you touched on levels of care. You know, what is your thought process behind that arc of transformation that people go through when they're receiving chiropractic care and just growing with you over time?
Yeah, it was hard for me because when I got into practice, it was hard for me to tell people you need to come X number of visits per week for this many weeks, and they'd be like, well, I can't. I can only come once a week, or I'll come every 2 weeks, and I just be like, okay. and it was hard because I was young and I didn't know how to lead, and I thought, well, okay. And then slowly over time, I realized that as I would do that, people are looking for someone to lead them. And they may not tell you that. No one will actually tell you, will you lead me? But they'll come and be, hey, I'm having this issue. Can you help me? And they're looking for an expert to lead them and say, Ben, just come with me. Just follow me. Just do this and do the things I'm going to ask you to do at home. Come see me on a regular basis. You need to come 3 times a week or whatever it is. for the next 6 weeks. And at that point, we'll check in. We're not going to talk about how you're feeling every single time. Why? Because this is a process. It's like, this didn't start overnight. This problem hasn't been here for one night. You can't fix it overnight. It's a process. And so it's like if you go to the gym, you're not going to ask your personal trainer, why don't I have a six pack every single time you leave your training session? You know, why haven't I lost 20 pounds? Because it's a process, you know? And so if you slowly but surely, I had coaching from, I had some really good mentors and coaches that taught me how to communicate. And, it's leading them to Ron Oberstein would talk about this. You got to lead them to the land of milk and honey. So I always thought it was funny. You got to cross the bridge, lead them to the land of milk and honey, which was, I like the visual. You got to take them from where they are and then take them by the hand and say, just follow me, let's go. And as soon as they start feeling better, their tendency is going to be to quit unless you're clear and you let them know beforehand that this is a process. There's these different phases you can go through. Once you do feel better, we need to make sure it's just like Tim Young talks about this. It's like, you ever had braces? You take off your braces, you put a retainer in there. And it's like, you have to maintain anything. You have a car, you got to maintain your car or motorcycle. So these are maintenance visits. This is you becoming your best. This is the 3 P's of chiropractic from Martin Harvey. There's pain prevention performance. We can take you to the highest level. And it's getting good at explaining all these things so that people understand that there's more than just pain relief.
Yes, yes. And as we segue to the end of this conversation, I'm curious where your focus is in the next 5-10 years, what you're particularly passionate about these days. Where's your heart at? Where's your focus at? Where's your inspiration coming from?
Professionally, I love being in practice. I've been in practice for 20 years. I'm loving it. I'm about to hire an associate, and just because I'm traveling so much with Syntropy, I need some help. Practice is still busy, and so I have someone to come along and be part of the practice and help with that. And so the big part of my professional focus is going to be, I'll always be in practice. I don't know always, but I love being in practice. But it's really growing Syntropy, and it's bringing Syntropy to chiropractic. We just see very, very clearly that chiropractic needs it. We want to leave chiropractic better than we found it. When I say we, I mean my partner and I, Patrick. And we need it. Chiropractors are getting beat up in practice. They don't have good biomechanics. They're not successful. They're not getting the results that they should. And their practices are not as good as they could be because they're just not good adjusters. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's, you get what you train. Like if you train, you're going to be good. And if you don't train, one of my mentors would say, train or don't complain. So my focus is Syntropy is really growing Syntropy, bringing it to chiropractors, bringing it to chiropractic students, and falling in love with excellence in chiropractic. And if we can do that, I seriously believe we can transform many, many, many thousands of lives, probably millions of lives if we all do this together. And so with however many years or days or however long I have left in my life, I professionally want to give my life force and life energy to that because it inspires me a lot.
What have you observed in traveling with Syntropy around the world of the energy of chiropractic communities in Australia or parts of Europe and parts of the US, maybe even Canada? What can you maybe touch on as just the common thread that you see as far as the motivation that chiropractic students and chiropractors have to get better? Is that consistent? And if also, can you maybe just touch on when you do expose people to this world of adjusting that you guys are bringing forth, like what's the response generally speaking?
Yeah, there's some similar themes. Sadly, I think that the level is dropping everywhere. The adjusting, when I say level, like the level of adjusting mastery or of being really good at adjusting, it seems like it's dropping. And I think it has a lot to do with not all schools at all. But in general, there's a lot of fear that are being taught. I think that Life West is good. I think that Life is good. Let me not name names of schools right now because I think there's some schools that are doing great work with that. And others that are just not doing well at all. And there's other schools that, a lot of them that are very mechanistic, very medically based, that want to remove the name chiropractic and anything chiropractic related from their curriculum. And I think it just makes me sick, actually. It's just, why would you do that? Just go do something else. Just go do physical therapy and go be a manual therapist. But removing adjustment, removing subluxation, removing the word chiropractic, it's like, come on, removing chiropractic history, removing the philosophy. It's like, what? Just go do something else. Just leave us alone. And what I found is that that's happening. So chiropractic students come out and they're scared to adjust way more than it was when we were in school. And then you just have to work with them and be patient, love them, and show them, hey, you're not gonna hurt anyone if you do it this way. You just got to be dropped in. You got to be aware. You got to understand how all this moves. And if you can start to break things down for them and show them, and they watch you adjust, Patrick and I will adjust the whole seminar, and we'll adjust everybody there. Sometimes there's 150 people in the room, and there's old people, young people, big people, skinny people, and no one's hurt. Everyone likes it. And they start seeing that, okay, this is fine. This is going to be okay. And slowly but surely, just like that window opens a little bit that you and I both had, and I was talking about at the beginning of this podcast, the window opens and they step through that and they say, okay, this is good. And this might not actually hurt people like they said it would. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just even listening, that art of listening for that window to open, metaphorically, you just talked about it in life, but also in delivery, adjustment. These are little subtleties that if you sprinkle it into somebody's training regimen, that it really does make the world a difference. I think that's one of the biggest differences in the skeptic that comes in to get an adjustment, and if you're listening for that window, it's like close, open, closed, open, and you're able to pay attention to that. That's a skill in itself.
If people might not know exactly what that means, is that if you come in and somebody is really stiff like this, and most of the times you'll see chiropractors will just go in there and just rotate and just move. It's like, let me just slam through that. Let me get that thing to move. Let me move that bone. And what you're talking about, Ben, is so key. And this was another huge piece from Arno, which was, there's a window, like you said, where their body will say, yes, I'm ready to receive an adjustment right now, or no, I'm not, and please don't do anything to me right now, because if you do, it's going to hurt me, and I don't want that. Not hurt me like injure me or cause serious damage. It's just going to be very uncomfortable. And so like you said, it's developing the skill of listening to the body and when it's okay to adjust, and not just firing through it because I'm in a hurry and I have a full waiting room,
Yeah, no, that's a whole nother variable. And I mean, I love these conversations. I would love for students to be witness and bear witness and then have their own conversations. It's not just about the gifts that you and I have been given. They're not as readily accessible anymore. And that's a lot of the inspiration for these conversations, is like, if we could just put a 1-minute clip of like, hey, go have a conversation about the art of listening while you're adjusting and practicing and training in the art of adjusting. Like, go do that as a group. We're not attached to the outcomes, right?
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you, because we get so concerned about, remember in school that the funniest question, I always think it's hilarious. Did it go? You try to adjust someone, and did it go? Did it go? Like, I don't know. What is that? I don't know if it went. I don't think so. It didn't pop. It's like, how did it go? And we're worried about if it went or if it didn't go, if it went or didn't. And like, did it go? Did it not go? And if we could just get more concerned about, was this person at ease? Did I adjust in a vector that was aligned with proper biomechanics to their body? Did I take care of my body and my shoulder when I adjusted so it didn't hurt me, and not just be like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get a pop? Even if I have to put my shoulder in a position that's going to hurt me, I might be able to do it for a year. But if I keep doing that, I'm going to blow a shoulder out, have a very, very short chiropractic career. We don't want that for you. We want you to have a great chiropractic career and be able to help thousands and thousands of people and feel good when you're doing it. But
just to be clear, just after listening to you for the last 45 minutes, it's really clear that you're very student-centered. And I think that if we're approaching chiropractic education from a student-centered place, then we're really just concerned about, like, what is the student experience like? What are they being exposed to? What types of experiences are they having? What types of opportunities are they being given to self-express? And what you're describing is just like an invitation in many ways. Like you talked about a number of different things, and I really appreciate it. But it's really just this independent study that students go on to find out what type of chiropractor do I want to be and how do I want
Yes,
to practice, right?
exactly. Yeah, you asked me earlier about something about defining artistry and as an adjuster, and then I went off on a tangent about not trying to be the one who looks the coolest on Instagram, but actually trying to deliver a great adjustment. And I think that it's that. So to really get to your question, it's what you just said, Ben. It's you have to try everything. Like I was into CBP, I was into Gonstead, I was into BGI, I was into Diversified, I went to MLS, Arno seminars, Sue Brown stuff. I just went to everything I could, and then there was just certain things that resonated more with me, and there were certain things that just didn't resonate. And then over time, you just start developing your own thing. Like you just said, it's kind of your own authentic expression of what do I think is the very best way that I can help somebody? And that comes from everything that I've been exposed to and worked on. So if you've only been exposed to this much and you go like, well, that's going to be my expression. But if you've been exposed to this much and you can really just go, I love this, and this, and I'm going to create my own experience for people because that's what I believe is the best. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was giving a presentation yesterday to Ron Oberstein, funny enough, and
Yeah.
it was just me and him, and I was telling him how I want to do this and that for the students, like the deliver the goods thing, or this Chiro student compass project that just helps them clarify their interests and gives them some
Nice.
breadcrumbs to move in the direction. But he said, you know, I'll let you know this is me speaking as him, that most people that come in and try and get in front of the students, they're doing it because they need that themselves. Like they don't actually have they have the student's best interests at heart, but they also have some personal needs to
Mm-hmm.
satisfy their ego of giving back. And I just want to say that, you know, hearing you talk this past hour, it's really clear you and me were really just trying to share that which we were given and that we
Mm-hmm.
kind of worked with and that we know is not the typical. It's an atypical path to really dedicate
Yes.
yourself in such as, to borrow your words, an obsessive kind of way. So I just want
Yes.
to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we stand on the shoulders of giants. And I'm so grateful that the people that have trained us and have mentored us, well, they stood on someone else's shoulders as well, and someone before them. And so if we can just keep passing that on and giving, I'm happy to do that. And I appreciate you what you're doing. I think that's great, Ben. And so thank you for what you're doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, just to share with you in 10 seconds what I'm doing. I'm trying to bring to the world a pre-chiropractic program. And
Mm.
that can mean whatever it means to you, but me having thought about this since third quarter of chiropractic school, we used to hear about it from Arno, the parallel curriculum. But it's
Yes.
like actually starting that way before chiropractic school is my premise, is that if we lengthen the runway, if we increase the amount of exposures early on, that by the time you get to chiropractic school, you're like, I've got a budget for Syntropy seminar, I've got a budget for this seminar, and I'm like already tapping in with them, watching the Facebook videos that they're posting that are 2 to 3 minutes, just sprinkling in little moments of clarity so that I can stay inspired through my whole process. And I think it'll change the trajectory of the average student. You know, you've got that little pocket like you and me that are like at all the seminars, and it's maybe
Mm-hmm.
10% of the student population. And then you got 80% who are like, you know, maybe do a seminar here or there, but they're sort of studying chiropractic. They're not super obsessed with it. And then you got 10% who are like, why did I come here? And you know, if we could kind of help that 10%, it was like, why did I come here? Because this was a fallback option and not their primary choice. I think that
Yes.
would be doing a lot of good in the world. And then obviously, every student, no matter what school you go to around the world, if they had that foundation, like you talked about with the pillars and the pyramids, like
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't matter what school they went to, they were at least exposed early on to what chiropractic is, so they could hear, like as you said, eliminating all these things. It doesn't make any sense to the average person who's like a logical, rational human being who's like taking the time to actually learn about it before creating judgments and ideas and
Yes.
opinions about it.
Yeah, great. Love it. I think that's such a great idea. Because I remember going into school and they'd ask, they wouldn't always, but they asked us, each person to go around and tell their story, how they got into chiropractic. And I remember so many people in that room, it was probably 80% who were just like, I don't know, I just thought it'd be a good thing to do. Or so many of them had not ever been adjusted before. Some of them, and then there were people, there was that 10%, like you said, you just knew that they were going to be the ones who were good. They were going to focus, they were going to like be obsessive and really train their butts off. And then you had the other 10% who were just like, I don't know why the F I'm here. I don't even know what's going on. But you would see as school went on, I don't know. I was surprised sometimes, but I think it would make it so much better if they had something like what you're talking about, and they could look at this sort of library of videos and documents and just have a clue before they get to school. You know what I mean? That's great. So I'm glad you're doing that.
Last thing I'll just say is that, it's very easy to turn our cheek and ignore that which doesn't serve us, ignore maybe the negativity or the 10% who's just like checked out, and just be like, they'll find their way eventually. It's their path. It's their choice. And also, it'd be easy to continue ignoring, in my opinion, this statement, which is chiropractic calls you. You're never, you're never finding chiropractic in like the guidance counseling sessions in high school and college,
No.
and them telling you like, this is an amazing path. Like, you should really put this right up there with what it is that you're interested in, being an athlete and interested in athletic things and lifting weights, whatever it is, the academics and the sciences, neuroscience. I can't tell you how many people never, ever, ever associate neuroscience with chiropractic. But anyway, I digress. I'm just letting you know it's really easy to just be like, we're having success here, so we're just gonna focus on doing our thing and ignore the rest. And that serves a lot of people. And that's maybe the best strategy for a lot of people, but I just can't continue to ignore like decades upon decades of ignoring the problems or the subluxations with that initial experience of like entering school.
Yes.
And just the
Yeah.
schools are the only ones promoting the profession right now. There's very few people that are like prospective student audience nurturers besides the school admissions departments, and we all know they have some agendas built into their relationship. So anyway, last wrap up commentary from you before we end here, please.
The schools have an issue because they need butts and seats. Okay, they need to pay for other stuff. It's very expensive to run a school, and so they have to get people in, and then people come in, they're not really sure why they're there, and it just creates kind of confusion, and they're like, I don't know why I'm doing this. And like you said, if we can find a way to, okay, let's take them by the hand early on, let's show them even before they start, I think that's just great. And have them be exposed to, okay, chiropractic is not just about neck pain and back pain and headaches, and it's about so much more, and it's about helping people, helping turn life on in people. And you don't even know the miracles that you can help create through chiropractic. And it all happens if you fall in love with chiropractic, and if you fall in love with training and becoming a master at this thing. And that may seem like it's out of reach for some people. I thought it was out of reach for me, but it's not. It's anyone can do it. If you and I can do it, anybody can do it. And all it takes is mastering fundamentals, having a coach show you the way. And if we can embrace that, and you can do this, like, you really can do this. You can have an amazing life, and you can make a lot of money helping thousands of people over a lifetime, and you should be well compensated for that. And it's just like, do it. Just do it. And there's a way to do it. You just got to follow the blueprint. I got to follow the path.